The transfer of former Northwestern quarterback Brenden Sullivan to Iowa has a lot of folks in Hawkeye country excited for what's to come in 2024. Can the black and gold take significant steps on the offensive side of the football?
From LA to Piscataway, all Big Ten all year long. This is Big Ten 10.
Some initial thoughts I have when it pertains to Brenden Sullivan coming over from Evanston to Iowa City is Brendan's not going to blow the roof off the place. This is not some big splash transfer. He played really well in relief of Ben Bryant when Ben was injured last season. But this also brings depth, much needed depth to the quarterback room. Brenden is a significant improvement over Deacon Hill. And when you have Cade McNamara and his health the way it is right now throughout spring ball and how limited he was and the uncertainty of his injury, this is certainly a big-time pickup. And then you factor in his connections with Tim Lester, and that's certainly something that Iowa fans, I think, are excited about, that those two have a history. Tim Lester recruited Brenden Sullivan coming out of high school at Western Michigan, so you know there's some camaraderie there. It was very clear that when Iowa was looking in the transfer portal for a quarterback, they wanted a quarterback with some mobility. You look at what General Booty was, possibly coming over Oklahoma, that was rumored, and then you look at what Brenden Sullivan is. Compared to what Iowa has had at the quarterback position, statues in Spencer Petras, Cade McNamara, a banged-up Cade McNamara, and Deacon Hill. They need some mobility to help out their offensive line, to help out some of other aspects of their offense. I think the big question that everybody has right now surrounding the quarterback position at Iowa is, does the transfer of Brenden Sullivan elevate him to the starting quarterback? What happens with Cade McNamara? Let's get into a YouTube comment from Tyler Brown to kind of illustrate where I'm going next with this. This is a good QB room after the transfer. 6, being Brenden Sullivan, is a starter quality quarterback. Let's make one thing perfectly and abundantly clear. There will be a quarterback battle in Iowa City this fall, in fall camp. Just because Brenden has 2 years of eligibility left doesn't mean that Cade McNamara certainly has this job locked up. If you look at Cade, he hasn't really played a significant amount of football over a long period, a chunk of starts, since 2021. Like, he hasn't done much of anything since Michigan won that Big Ten title. He suffered a couple of injuries and had a handful of starts in the first part of the season for Iowa last year. But when you look at Brenden Sullivan's health right now and what he was able to do, he certainly has a leg up right now when we head into this battle going up against Cade McNamara, because he's on the healthy end of things. He's got some momentum coming off of last season. So this is certainly going to become a battle. Each guy certainly has their skill set. Cade might be a little bit more polished as a passer, but Brenden might bring a little bit more to what Tim Lester wants to do on offense. The quarterback battle is certainly going to be the central focus, and it is going to be a big question. Now that they've brought in a veteran Big Ten starter, that is going to be a question through the summer. That is going to be a question going into fall camp. The health of Cade McNamara, how is he progressing, is also going to play a big factor into this. But there's 2 things that I really have my eye on that Iowa needs to do to improve their offense, to get out of the college football basement and have success in year 1 under Tim Lester. Besides being putrid the last 2 seasons, what do you think of when you think of the Iowa Hawkeyes on offense? I think of tight end university. Offensive lines have been pretty solid over the course of time across the Kirk Ferentz era, and this is a team that wants to run the football. They've got a lot of that figured out, especially at the tight end position. We know Luke Lachey and Addison Ostrenga are going to make up one of the best tight end rooms in the Big Ten, which makes them one of the best tight end rooms in college football. We'll talk about the depth in the running game in just a minute. But the number one thing that Iowa needs to do, they need to have a threat at the wide receiver position. This is an offense. When we talk about unleashing, this is an offense that needs to unleash Caleb Brown. It kind of took a little bit for Caleb to learn the playbook and really get into his role on the team last year. But once he really got going late in the season, you saw what kind of a player he can be, and you saw what he added to the Iowa offense. And you look at what Tim Lester wants to do, running mainly out of shotgun, spreading out 3 wide receivers, sometimes 4 wide receivers, and maybe taking advantage of those matchups on the perimeter. This is an Iowa team. They struggled on offense, yes, because of their poor quarterback play, but they also struggled on offense because nobody could get open. They didn't have wide receivers that were a threat down the field, and when they finally got one in Caleb Brown, it wasn't until late in the season. So they need to open up this offense for Caleb Brown to succeed. He's too fast. He's got too much skill to be bottled up like he was. So whether it's some short passing concepts, getting him the football in space, maybe going down the field towards the center or down the seam, or just go routes, hey, just take advantage of a one-on-one matchup, they need to do something with Caleb Brown. He has to be the guy to really take a step up and be that threat down the field, because it is going to open up other parts of this offense, and it makes it much more difficult to game plan, because it's been very easy to game plan defensively against this Iowa offense. Let's bring a bunch of guys up to the line of scrimmage and stop the run, because they don't have quarterbacks that can throw the ball. They don't have wide receivers that can get open in man-on-man coverage. Very easy to defend the Iowa Hawkeyes. If Caleb Brown and Seth Anderson, but mostly if Caleb Brown is able to make some plays in the back end of this defense, that opens up a whole new layer to the Hawkeyes offense. So if Tim Lester is able to work other levels of this offense in the passing game, that's going to open up this offense in the run game. And Iowa needs to really take advantage of that. They need their offensive line, because you have this offensive line that was young a couple of years ago with the Logan Jones, the Connor Colbys, and companies on this O-line. Now they're experienced. Now you need to turn them into road graders for this run game. And really, that throw game is going to be able to loosen up the defense, so you can take advantage of a hat on a hat, so you can take advantage of those matchups in the run game. When you look at the trio of backs on this Iowa Hawkeyes team, you look at Caleb Johnson, you look at LeSean Williams, you look at Jazz Patterson, all of those guys have shown big-time sparks at certain games and certain moments during past seasons. Like, if Caleb Johnson could play Purdue every game, he'd be in the Heisman conversation. It seems like he rushes for 150 yards, 200 yards every time he plays the Boilermakers. Jazz Patterson in that game against Iowa State really came through. LeSean Williams, that big run against Wisconsin for a touchdown early in that football game last year. When you look at a trio of running backs, the pair and the spare, this is a room that's going to be able to maybe not have one standout guy, but it's the rotation. It's keeping all 3 of these guys fresh, and having balance with the pass game is going to be able to open up some seams for this run game. Kirk Ferentz has said this when maybe talking about offense and defense. Football is complementary, and this Iowa offense needs to be complementary. The last handful of seasons, they haven't been able to throw the football, and thus maybe their run game has suffered a little bit as well. So if their throw game can loosen things up, that's going to help everything involved, and this is going to be a team that is going to take advantage of the matchups in the strength of their offense, which is the rushing attack. I'm not the only one that's been saying this over the last couple of seasons, but all Iowa needs to do to really get to that level to compete, maybe even be a playoff team, give me the 70th ranked offense in the country. Give me the 65th ranked offense in the country. And when you combine that with what Phil Parker does on the defensive side of the football, this could be a team that, even though they've won 10 games in 2021, 2023, right, they made it to the Big Ten Championship, won the Big Ten West in those years, this is maybe a team that could even maybe take a step even further. And when you look at their schedule for this season, this is a manageable schedule. Okay, you look at Illinois State, Iowa State, which is a pretty good Big 12 team. You get them in Kinnick Stadium. this year, and you also look at the Troy Trojans out of conference. But when we look at this Big Ten schedule, very manageable. I know a lot of people have been talking about, well, now those Big Ten West teams maybe need to adapt and maybe improve a little bit because they aren't playing a lot of those same folks every year. Iowa, although not 100%, is maybe a half exception to the rule because the Big Ten has protected rivalries against Wisconsin, against Nebraska, and against Minnesota. When you look at this 9-game slate, you also add in Northwestern. That is 4 of the possible 6 Big Ten West teams that you play in 2024 when there is no Big Ten West in 2024. Of course, you look at that Ohio State game. That's going to be a big-time challenge going to the Shoe on October 5th. But you look at the rest of these games, they are very winnable games if this Iowa offense can take that step up that we talked about. Now there are also some toss-up games. You look at the Nebraskas of the world. You look at the Wisconsins of the world. You even look at a game like a Washington or a Minnesota. So although these are winnable football games, I think there are a lot of toss-ups on the schedule for the Iowa Hawkeyes as well. But you take a peek at this, you look at what they have on defense, you see that improvement on the offensive side of the football. This is certainly maybe that dark horse playoff, maybe dark horse Big Ten type of candidate that you look for when you look at this new type of era in college football. Although this year the schedule maybe works in their favor, this is still an Iowa football team that needs to evolve. This is still an Iowa football team that needs to adapt. When you look at, for example, USC and their defense, that is a defense that needs to improve dramatically to have success in the Big Ten, right? You look at this Iowa team, they need to get more skilled. They need to get faster. They just need to get overall better on the offensive side of the football. We talk about meeting in the middle. Iowa improving on offense and being more dynamic on offense is certainly something that they need to do to have success in this new Big Ten. I want to hear what you guys think. Do you think Iowa will make those strides and make that jump on the offensive side of the football, or is it going to be business as usual from the Brian Ferentz era? Leave your thoughts, all things Iowa 2024 offense, in the comments below. I'm Big Ten Ted. We'll see you in the next one.
Thanks for watching Big Ten Ted, where it's all Big Ten all year long. Make sure to like the video to spread the word of Big Ten Ted to the masses, and subscribe to the channel for updates on Big Ten content that drops every day.